those that are in the people and culture team probably know that I'm pretty passionate about the area of kind of fitness, mental health, diet, wine, maybe not so much. But it's something that I've really grown to appreciate as I've got older, still being active, still moving. Things hurt for a bit longer, takes me a bit longer to recover. But it's so important that I keep committing to what I've committed to. And I do CrossFit, which is a crazy kind of exercise thing. And I do still try and keep up with people that are kind of half my age. So at some point, my shoulders and my knees will probably tell me I can't do that anymore. But it is, for me, it's a huge stress reliever. I am better when I exercise. I get grumpy, tired, and I annoy people when I don't exercise. And so for me, this has been a fantastic opportunity to hear from someone who is an expert at this kind of area. So I'm going to read about Cam because it was quite a glowing paragraph, and I don't want to miss any of these lovely words. Cam McDonald is a dietitian, an exercise physiologist, a PhD scholar, a leader in the application of personalised health in the workplace, strong drive to make sure that turning up to work has a positive effect on your health. He specialises in understanding how people are different down to their genetics and has a working knowledge of how individuals can reverse disease and optimise health at work through the understanding that each person has unique needs. To start this process, understanding individuals and reducing stress is a critical factor in moving people and companies to better health and better commercial outcomes. So I would like to introduce Dr. Cam. I think he's going to spend the next sort of hour or so filling us in and filling us up with a wealth of knowledge. Thanks, Cam.
Thank you for coming out. It's really an absolute honour to be invited to talk to you all today. And in an area that I am particularly passionate about, I have a real interest in the idea of people turning up to work, spending time at work, and then leaving work healthier. And while I travel around doing a fair bit of this stuff, talking to a lot of different companies, and I'm sure not this one, however, other companies crazily go to work, sometimes people go to work and they leave work more stressed than when they turned up. Does anyone know someone who's got the misfortune of that? No hands? No one knows anyone like that. You guys are in very, very good company. So what we're going to be talking about today is why we actually turn up to work, why that's good for us, how we can make it a whole lot better for us as well, and how you can contribute to the person next to you's health as well. We're going to go through some pretty revolutionary topics today. By the end of today, I would really love you to be more aware of who you are and how your biology makes you who you are. That's number one, because in order to make sure that we can understand you as a person, we need to understand your biology. And if we understand you and your biology, then we can start to understand what's going to stress you that doesn't stress the person next to you. And what can you do that can decrease your stress, that if you apply that to someone else, it wouldn't have the same effect. And then, finally, we're going to be talking about if you are in control of your stress, what effect that can have on the people next to you as well. So we're going to cover a fair bit today, but a lot of it is going to be about, I'm going to be getting you to reflect on how your body responds to the different strategies that you might apply, and we're going to get into it straight away. So the first thing to start, we're talking about stress. Stress is a funny little word because it's not necessarily bad. When we go and exercise our muscles at the gym, we get bigger muscles because there was a stress that said this environment is too heavy for me. You've actually broken some of your muscle fibers, and then in recovery, your muscle gets stronger. So stress isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as we have the appropriate environment around it as well. But when we come to this question is, why does anyone do anything? We do something selfless for our family when we're tired, or if there's been like a really great event on Friday night and you don't feel like doing humans, but then you have to do humans, and you push your way through it. Why do you think that we actually do that? Does anyone know why we do those things? Sorry? Absolutely, motivation. Why else might we do it? We're motivated to do it? Guilt, yes. Both of those two things are exactly what we're talking about. Essentially, is it important enough? If you don't turn up to work when you're tired, what happens? You might lose your job, or you have to be really good at coming up with an awesome excuse that makes it sound like you're really sick or something dramatic is happening so you can get away with it. But if you do it repeatedly, it's not going to go so well for you. So our body, our biology essentially is geared to always look to avoid pain and to survive. That's its number one priority. When you're at work and you're tired and you don't have energy and you're not feeling particularly passionate about life, what happens is your survival mechanisms kick in. You drink 3 to 4 coffees, and all of a sudden your brain is able to override the tiredness in your body. Is everyone familiar with that scenario? Okay, some good nods. So our body biologically is geared to tell us what's going on, and then our brain makes a decision on, is it wise for me to follow my bodily cues right now? And sometimes it's not that wise. You've got to turn up to work anyway. So essentially, when our brain wants it enough, if it's important enough to us, we will endure stress. Everyone okay with that so far? All right, now, I did a bit of a survey of various people at the business, but I wanted to hear a little bit more from you about when it comes to work and home, what are the major things that create stress for you, whether it be someone that you know or someone like yourself? I'm going to actually ask for you to hit me with a few examples. What have we got? What creates stress in your life, or you think creates stress in a lot of people's lives? Lack of control. Nice one. Oh, that's an excellent deep conversation we can have for another time. Lack of control. Time. Lack of honesty. Did someone say? Yes. Okay, very good. Yeah, that can be very stressful for certain people. Lack of communication, yes, or sometimes too much communication. People can be very annoying sometimes. What else? What else have we got? Time frames, yeah, absolutely. What else? Financial stress is a big one, yes. Too much sitting at the desk or a lack of activity. These are very, very good. So from the information that I gathered, crises and emergencies are stressful. Everyone familiar with a crisis and an emergency here? Yep, very good. Being constantly on. I know that I'm the type of person that likes to take work home with me and sleep with it all night, and then sometimes wake up during the night thinking about work as well. Has anyone had an experience where they've taken work home with them or felt like they're on even though they've left the workplace? A few nods. Shift work, generally just having crappier sleep will definitely have an influence on how good you feel and how passionate you feel about life and work. Even change in role and structure. If there's structural changes in the organisation, that's a big one. Long hours. Everyone done long hours before? They're the best, aren't they? All right. And then high expectations, whether being placed on you and you being out of control of those expectations, or in fact, when you place those expectations on yourself. Is everyone following along so far? So these things definitely cause stress, and hopefully this is quite specific to this population right here. Then there's these other things which we mentioned before. If you eat burgers all day, it will create a stress on your world and on your life. If you don't do any activity and you're sitting down all day, that will create a stress, and that's why we're going to move in about 10 minutes. If you have a mental state that says you're not worthy, or that says you're not good enough, or that says I stuff that up and I never get anything right, and that's a constant loop that goes around and around in your mind, and you're constantly affirmed of that, that also creates a stress in your life too, and I won't get hands up for that, because I can see some subtle nods as we go. And then even having a tense relationship at home, who finds that the best thing ever? No, definitely not. And these things create a tangible stress on your life and will affect your biology. So there's a lot of things, and the one thing that you may not be aware of is something like air conditioning. Who loves sitting in front of air conditioning? Some people, yes. Some people love it. And then some people would prefer to die. Air conditioning can be a constant stressor in your environment, just like cold weather can be, too hot weather. These things have an impact on your body as well. And these aren't always the things that we're talking about. So essentially we have two categories. We have category of stress that is it's a background noise. It's like your kid nagging you on and on. It's like, daddy, 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 while you're trying to do some work. It's just like a background stress that doesn't really go away ever. And even at 18, apparently I've heard, it doesn't even go away then. So we have these background stresses, and then we have the acute stress of a crisis, of a long day with very poor sleep. So we have these different things that are impacting our health all of the time. So what I wanted you to understand is how this stress gets generated. The green bit is good health. Stress is really important, and I'm going to go through this with exercise first to talk about how good stress is, and then I'm going to talk about how it can affect our living life in a not so positive way. So, well, let's say that we're in good health and we go to the gym. We're about to enter a park run, something that's got a little bit of excitement about it, and we're getting pumped up. We are now in stage 1, alarm stage. This is when your body gets ready for stress. Is everyone following along with that so far? You haven't done anything yet, but you're ready for it. Just like if you're about to walk into a crisis room and you know that things are about to hit the fan and get a bit smelly, we know that this alarm phase is about preparing your attention, preparing your energy levels for the big exertion that you're about to commit. Then we have stage 2. Stage 2 is when you are in the stress. This is when you're running, you're 3Ks into park run, things are starting to hurt, and you compensate for that pain by saying, no, this is really good for me, and I'm with my friends, and everything's fine, and I'll feel good on the other side of it. This is you putting up resistance to stress. Is everyone following along so far? You're in it, you're using your stress hormones, but you're under stress. And then, let's say they extend park run by 3 days, and you're now running an ultra marathon for 3 days. Physically, you'll become exhausted, some sooner than others, okay? So these are the 3 stages of stress. We have alarm, we have resistance to that stress, which is really important. But what happens if you stop exercising during the resistance phase and then you rest? Your body recovers and it gets stronger. Now, the problem with life is that life never stops. And if we fill our life full of background stress, then we never get to come out and rest out of resistance, and we head our way towards exhaustion. Now, exhaustion is very extreme. Waking up and needing a coffee before work is not exhaustion, okay? Waking up and needing 3 coffees before work is not exhaustion. We're going to get to what exhaustion is. Essentially, what happens in resistance stage, which is where we are most of the time when we've got ongoing lack of sleep or we've got work that's creating stress for us, our blood pressure increases, our anxiety or our mental activity increases is a better way of saying that. We might get mental fog, we might get digestive issues, we might get impatience. I don't know if anyone's been impatient with their family when they've come home after a day at work. Everyone's pretty good on that one. Okay, and then we have high blood sugar levels, lower immunity, lower energy levels, and it's a new condition that happens after a long day at work. It's called foot in mouth at home syndrome. The reason why I say at home is because we keep our stuff together at work, don't we? We go, it is important enough for me to override my tiredness at work because I do not want to, but as soon as I get home, my family are going to have this tiredness. And so I like to call this FIMARS. That's something that you can have a think about. And this is something that I want to prevent because imagine this, you spend all of your days at work and then what are you doing? You're donating your time for money so that you can live your life with your family with FIMARS. How devastating is that? When we might have the opportunity to go home at the end of the day and actually enjoy the time that we have and get out on the weekend and not be recovering from the week that we've just had so that we're only just playing catch up, and in often cases we're not playing catch up. So we have a resistance stage. Our body adapts to constantly be on more, and as a result, our body starts going into dis-ease, which is, I haven't had time to recover, therefore I've got to compensate. I've got to keep my stress hormones up. I don't feel so great. Has anyone experienced this today? Okay, no, none of you. Excellent. Well recovered last night. Good sleeping. So then we have stage 3, which is where it gets really quite diabolical. This is where we start getting depression, not just depression mentally, but depression of your energy levels. So when you go to do something hard, you feel exhausted. Sometimes you can't even get out of bed. This is more like chronic fatigue. It's not the most positive way to start a conversation, but it's going to become a lot more fun. So, like we have with FIMARS, our resistance at work is stronger than it is at home. And I am absolutely passionate about letting you guys come to work, feel good or neutral, so that you can go home the way you left. And so that you can have those patient, tolerant, loving interactions with your son or daughter or partner. Even when they're annoying the hell out of you, you can exercise that patience because you have the energy. Okay? So, what your body is searching for, essentially, all of these things, what takes us out of this stress is biological safety. When you're tired and you push your brain to work, you are no longer in your biological safety. You're in your mental safety of, I'm going to keep my job. But you are not in your biological safety of, I'm following the cues of what my body is telling me. Is everyone okay with that? And so what your body needs is to get back to biological safety. And I want you to remember that because it's probably the most important thing out of today once we pile up all the other information on top of it. So the things that affect your biological safety will be what you do, so your food, your exercise, the job you've got, all of that type of stuff, your social life. It is when you do it, okay? Not all of us like to get up at 1 a.m. and go for a run. Why is that? Because it stresses us more to get up at 1 because we miss sleep. So there's different times of day to do different things that have a profound impact on your body. And then who you do it with. People themselves can be stressful. And when you understand people more and when you understand yourself more, you're going to have a much more effective way of managing and actually enjoying even people who you've got a little bit of tension with. You can find incredible strengths in why there's tension, and that's some of the information that I'd like you to get out of today too. So we've got a fair bit to get through. Would everyone agree with that? Yes. So the good news is that all you got to do is eat right, move right, relax when you're supposed to, and do the jobs in the right way that are designed for you, and surround yourself with good people. Stress talk over. Right? And this is normally where we start going on online and thinking, oh, well, I'll just look up meditation. Meditation, apparently, it's good for decreasing your stress. And then there's 20 different ways to meditate. Which one's right for me? And then we go, oh, I'm going to try one of these 17,000 diets that I can buy for $90 and download it and start applying it and remove 17 food groups and just live on water and some sort of lime juice or something like that. That's another option as well. I mean, this is where we say these things like, yeah, we've got to be healthy, but then what do we do about that? Because, and this is the most incredible thing about personalised health, is that it's different for everyone. What you need to decrease your stress is different to the person next to you. And in order for us to understand that, we need to understand how you developed in order to understand where you've come to, so where we're leaving from when we're on our health journey. And this comes from a dominance and development story. Now, you weren't conscious of this when your parents did this one thing, this one time that you never want to think about again, but you're very, very thankful for it because you are the byproduct. It's excellent. And so what you get there is your genetic information, and then we start developing into an embryo. Now, it seems a little bit scientific that we're going into embryology, but you're going to find that this is actually where it holds the key to where our differences lie and how we can understand our body in a different way. In the embryo, there are 3 different layers: the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. And you can see from the ectoderm, you might be able to see that it's all the nervous tissue and the skin. I'll just bring up this next picture. Yeah. So in the ectoderm, it's the nervous tissue and the skin. Can everyone see that? Lovely. So that's what's developing in this layer of the embryo. Then the second layer of the embryo, what can you see is in the second layer of the embryo, the mesoderm? Muscle, skeleton, yes, there's actually fat tissue in there too. You can also see the reproductive glands and the kidneys and the adrenals. That's also in the mesoderm. And then we have the endoderm, which is all of the what? The digestive tract and the lungs, essentially, absolutely, and the things that control your metabolism. So this is important because when you're developing, you don't develop these layers equally. You develop them with a dominance of one thing or 2 things and a lesser of the other layers, okay? And so if we were just to develop the ectoderm, for example, what do you think that body would be really good at? Just having nervous tissue and skin, what would it be excellent at? So actually, it'd be terrible at surviving cold weather because it has no warmth at all. It's just a buzzing bag of skin on the ground, okay? So it's got lots of electrical activity from the nervous system. Essentially, this body would be very good at sensing the world. The nervous system is for sensory, the skin is for sensory, and thinking. Lots and lots of thinking as its primary operation. Everyone okay with that? Okay, then the mesoderm, what do you think, if you just develop your mesoderm, what would you be really good at? Moving, absolutely. And with your reproductive organs there and your adrenal glands moving really fast. And then we have the endoderm. What do you think you'd be good at if you had just an endoderm that was growing? A lot of people say eating. It's actually you're very good at digesting. You're very good at, and so you're able to extract nutrients, and then you've got the metabolic control organs. You can slow your metabolism down very easily. Very impressive what the endoderm can do. So the important thing here is that you understand firstly a little bit of science, because science is fun. At least I think it's fun. And that little bit was for me. Then what we need to do is understand that we're not growing these layers equally. And if we understand what layer you've developed more dominantly, we actually get to understand a lot about your body and what drives its stress and what drives its relaxation. So we have the pure mesomorph, okay? We call them the activator, and we'll get to that. And what happens when you develop a big musculoskeletal system, or not necessarily big, but very dominant, it also makes this whole body, it gives it more testosterone and more adrenaline. So more sex hormones and also more adrenaline. So as this person is tracking through their life, they're flooded a little bit more with more adrenaline and more testosterone than the person next to them. Okay? That definitely changes what you think is fun and what you think is exciting and what you think is boring. What does testosterone do to us? Anyone seen someone juiced up on steroids? What happens? They can be more aggressive, definitely. They like initiating things. They're not scared of conflict. They definitely are more competitive. Our sex hormones make us more competitive. What does adrenaline do? When do we need our adrenaline? Fight or flight, absolutely. When we've got something exciting and risky occurring. So this body is developing with hormones at slightly higher levels. So as it walks through the world, it thinks things that increase testosterone and adrenaline is home base, is biological safety, because they've been developing in a pool of adrenaline and testosterone their whole life. Does that make sense? Okay. So this means that the activities that they love competition, they love variety, they love risk, and they love movement. This is the type of person that can't sit still in a meeting. This is the type of person that likes just shouting out whenever they feel like saying something. This is the type of person that is standing next to their grandma and still beats them walking speed as they're going to lunch together because they just want to win. This is a competitive body, and I'm going to create some caricatures of these bodies. This body is geared to take risk because risk equals unknown. Unknown equals adrenaline. Adrenaline equals home base. It means safety and normal for this body. Is everyone following along with that so far? Okay, cool. So we have, what happens though, when we have these hormones and this layer, it actually changes the way our body develops as well. And so this is an example of the structure of someone who has a dominant mesoderm layer as they develop. Simone Biles, an Olympic gymnast, more medals than anybody else. She's shorter because testosterone actually shortens the length of your femur. So this type of person actually ends up with shorter legs and a longer trunk, and they're a little bit fiery, and they love risk and doing 20 flips and throwing themselves around poles and having a great time just because it all feels normal. If they weren't doing that, they would feel bored. Everyone okay with that? So then, their motto with this testosterone adrenaline balance is do first, think later. I'm just going to have a crack. Oh, there's a fence. We should jump it. Okay, sweet. Let's do it. Off they go. Versus somebody else gets their tape measure out and says, I don't think this is safe. I don't think I'll be doing this. Meantime, activator is over the fence, broke their leg, goes, the boys are going to love this story. That was the best. Because their adrenaline fuels their pain relief. Okay? Does anyone know someone like this? Normally they're a little bit energetic. They like just buzzing around the room, particularly in the morning. They are very, very active. Okay? So we then have a very different body compared to that, and that is the guardian, we call them, and this is a body that develops its endoderm layer more predominantly. And what happens when you develop your endoderm layer more predominantly is you end up with a greater need for prolactin in your life and an interesting relationship with insulin. So prolactin, if you know about this, it helps you produce breast milk. And so if you think about the psychology of breast milk for a second, I haven't slept, I've barely eaten except for a few stale crackers that I found, and I'm going to give you all of my breast milk even though I'm completely exhausted and I don't feel like I've had enough to eat. And then as a thank you to doing that, I'm going to have to wipe your bum and clean your vomit off my shoulder, and I'm meant to call it love. Prolactin is a selfless hormone. It makes you selfless. It helps you produce breast milk. I'm going to give without the expectation of getting back, and I'm going to do it selflessly, okay? So we have a body here that develops with a greater need for more prolactin in their life. And so normal for them is caring for people. It's not jumping over fences. It's, oh dear, let's make sure that we can patch up that leg. Oh, I don't think that's so safe for the family. I think we might pull it back. Then we have this interesting relationship with insulin. Is if we've got a body that's going to constantly give out all of our energy, I'm going to give away everything, right? The body goes, well, I need to be able to survive. So I'm going to use my very strong digestive system, and I'm going to make sure that we store everything that we eat. And so I walk past that bakery, 3 kilos just went on. And there's this skinny chick inside the bakery who I see every day eating croissants, and she's getting skinnier. What's going on with that? But I seem to go on a night out and I've just gained 4 kilos of fluid, it seems. And so this is a body that when it's geared for selflessness, it also has another compensation in the body to make sure it can hold more weight, because prolactin makes you want to care for everyone. So if you see someone that you love in stress, your body goes into stress and stacks on more weight so that when the famine comes, you'll be able to protect them. This is what prolactin does. This is what's normal for this body. Now, as they go through life, the things that they love will be nurturing. The prolactin makes their biological safety comes from nurturing, because they get flooded with prolactin, which makes them feel normal. They love conserving, they love family, and they like steady, rhythmical activities, because it means they don't spend lots of energy, because spending lots of energy means that the family's going to starve when the famine comes. So these are biological traits that are built into us from evolutionary times. Is everyone following along so far? Does anyone know a body that's bigger and stronger, has more muscle tissue, maybe a little bit more fat tissue as well? But they just seem to always be caring and always be nurturing. And the typical type of mum is someone who's got a pantry where there is an unlimited amount of food that just keeps traveling out of this pantry, and the neighborhood kids come over, everyone's invited for dinners, and we just want to have big family catch-ups, because that's all that matters is family, because then I can care for my team, and if I know my team is safe, then everything is good in the world. I will have my prolactin. Hello, Telstra Air. Okay, that may happen again. So we have a body that they stress very differently. So the body on the left with the adrenaline and the excitement, monotony, suppression of their emotions, they have to say something. When they get a stress, their adrenaline goes, just say it and it'll be fine. But then they don't even think it's going to be fine. They just say it. And then they walk away, and then they come back, and the person they said it to said, how dare you could say something like that? And they said, what do you mean say something? Why would you bring that back up? I'm over it, because I blew off my steam and now I'm good. This is a body that needs that immediate release, because this is how adrenaline and testosterone work. They're 100% on, 100% off. And so if they're doing something really boring and repetitive and there's no risk and variety, it stresses them. I have to do this bit of paperwork again. And then they say something nasty to the person next to them because they're getting rid of their stress. It's got nothing to do with the person. It's got to do with the fact that they need to get rid of this adrenaline right now. Is everyone okay with that? All right. And then we have the thing that burns them out. When you're going 100 miles an hour. All right, guys, I'm just going to quickly turn off my Wi-Fi if I can. All right. Okay, very good. So we then have this body that goes 100% of everything. They're constantly on because they've got this adrenaline, and just say, you can definitely do that too. Oh, a new task? I can definitely do that too. Oh, a new thing? Yes, I can definitely do that too. Do you want to go running after work? Yes, I can definitely do that too, because they've got this amazing adrenaline that just says, don't worry about that pain. We've got this covered. Okay? So this is a body that when they're constantly on, they burn out hard. And they've got this natural predisposition to say yes to everything. So then we have the body. What stresses the body on the right is when you don't have family to care for, if you don't have people that you're connected to, I can't feel the prolactin. Now I'm isolated. Now I'm stressed. We go from a person who gets stressed from monotony to a person who'd love monotony just as long as they've got their family around. And everything is okay if my family is around, because that's what the hormones are driving in their biological safety. Is everyone seeing how that works? Okay, so we have what they also stresses them is prolonged sprinting. Not that anyone really enjoys that, but some sickos do. And they're biologically set up for it as well. And essentially, this body, when it's told to go into high stress in intervals, it doesn't enjoy that either, because if it's using all of its energy, what's left for my family? It's got this biological drive to reserve 10% of their energy for their family. Does anyone know someone like that? Who just puts things on hold for other people? Absolutely no one knows one of these people. Okay, a couple of people. You need to find one of these people in your life because they will make the best lunches for you ever. Okay, so this is a person who is have, then do. I need to accumulate to make sure I've got enough, and then I'll spend. I'm going to make sure I've got my savings, and then I'll buy it. Adrenaline activator over here just goes, I just got a new credit card so I can get some new shoes. This is going to be the best thing ever. I'll pay it off later. Pay first, think later. Okay? So very different bodies. Is everyone seeing the difference in these two? Because there is more than just these two. And as we go through these, I want you to just understand, I want you to have a think about where these bodies may clash and where they may complement. Alrighty. So the first one is the opposite of the guardian. The guardian is the very nurturing person. The crusader is the opposite. And so just to give you a little bit more reference for this, we can see the ectomorphs are down the bottom, the mesomorphs are top left, and the endomorphs are far right, okay? And there's a gradient of those. So we have the guardian, who's the opposite to the crusader. This is the crusader we're talking about right now. Imagine this for a human being. They are focused on dopamine. Dopamine is everything to them. Dopamine is, if you focus and achieve your goals, then everything is fine. Dopamine is a selfish driving hormone. When you go, when you do anything for yourself, there's a dopamine push for you to do that. Prolactin is the opposite. Prolactin makes you care for everyone else and put everyone else's preferences first. These are on a swing. As you have more dopamine, you have less prolactin running around. They inhibit each other, okay? So this body naturally needs more dopamine in their life. In order to have lots of dopamine, you've got to have a big vision. You've got to have something that you're driving towards. Because what it does, dopamine cuts away all of your pain and tiredness and says, we can keep going. We can keep running. We can keep pushing. I'm going to punch out 20-hour weeks because I can see the benefit that's going to occur. I can see the vision that I'm going to create. Dopamine's going to tell me that there is nothing wrong with my body. I'm just going to keep traveling, okay? And so when you've got a dopamine-like body, we see them in marathon running. You can imagine running for 2 hours at 20 kilometers an hour. How insane is that? I can't even, okay? It's just, to be able to think that you can operate at 95% of your output for 2 hours, this is what dopamine allows you to do. It says, nothing else matters except for that world record. Let's go get it, okay? So we have this, as far as safety is concerned, in order to get dopamine, you need to have a purpose, you need to have a vision, you need to have a mission, you need to be strategic, because if you're trying to achieve your vision, you need to be strategic about how you're going to get there. You need to be incredibly motivated by achievement and data. Now, the type of person that would fit this mold is a guy or girl who works long hours through the week and then wakes up during family time on Saturday, gets their Garmin watch out and their $10,000 bike, and they go out cruising for 3 hours on the weekends, tracking their data and their heart rate to make sure that they are optimally performing with perfectly measured outputs and wattage, and also carbohydrate and electrolyte intake throughout the time, then to get back and share those results with themselves so that they can see their self-improvement, okay? This is a dopamine-driven body, and normally they'll have the structure of this type of marathon runner, okay? I am one of these people, okay? I just don't have the Garmin yet. So when it comes to stress, when you are all about the vision and the mission and pushing towards that, and that's how you feel normal, what is stress? Inefficiency is stress. Lack of clearly defined goals. I don't have anything to put my dopamine towards. I don't have motivation to do anything. If you don't have clarity in what you're wanting, this body will start stressing. And purposeless chat. Water cooler chat. This is a person who will keep things to a 1 or 2 word answer at the best of times just to make sure. This is the type of conversation that goes on. Oh, honey, do you want to go to the beach today? This is not my conversation. This is a conversation of a friend that I know, okay? A crusader. And the crusader does this with their dopamine. Right, what's the goal for today? We've got lunch at 12 and I do not want to go stressed because it will stress her if it takes too long to get ready and we're late. That's the frame. That's the vision and the mission for today. So in my mind, in his mind, there's a monologue of There's a monologue of, it's going to take us half an hour to get ready. It's going to take us 50 minutes to get to the beach. That's an hour 20. It's 9 o'clock right now. It's 10:20 by the time we get to the beach. It's going to take us 50 minutes to get back, 20 minutes to set up. It looks like we're only going to spend about 20 minutes of time on the actual sand having a little bit of fun. We're going to spend 4 hours. I've got 3 or 4 things that I'd really like to get done today. And if we get home and we're late, she is going to be so stressed, and I'm going to be rushing her to make sure we get to the beach on time, that we have a nice time. Then there's probably going to be a fight, because the last 3 weekends there's been a fight. All of that happens internally in about 3 seconds, and then the answer comes back, nah. You never talk to me. We never do anything together. I really feel like the Crusader is misunderstood. Okay, so understanding that the brain, what makes safety is being on vision, on mission, and they are strategic in getting there. Does anyone know someone like that? Yeah, oh yes, big nods, big eye roll nods. Okay, then we have the diplomat, which is the combination of the ectoderm and the endoderm. This is the opposite of the activator. The pro-risk person. This is the anti-risk person. And the reason why they are a little bit anti-risk is because they are dominant, or what their body is finally balanced on is serotonin. Serotonin is your reward hormone. And if this body doesn't get enough serotonin, then they feel, they crash. Essentially, they get depressed, because if they don't get it, their body wants to then go into conserve energy and goes into depression. So they really have to weigh up every decision that they make, because if they get it wrong, they don't get their serotonin, and it's going to significantly demotivate them. Is everyone following that along so far? Okay, the type of body that we have for a diplomat is anyone from The Rock to Nicole Kidman. So this is a very varied body. Okay, and depending on where they are, depending on how much of ectoderm and endoderm is involved in their body. So what is safe for this body is considering all options. Because if you consider all of the options, you are definitely going to make a decision that is the right one. However, what happens with considering all options, what do you think happens? If you're an activator and you've got adrenaline coursing through your blood, what do you think is going to annoy you about this? They take some time. That's right. But the most important thing, it's like a cruise ship. They take a bit of time in the morning, the tugboat brings them up to speed, then they start hitting their cruise rhythm, and they are so good at holding a steady rate for a long period of time. They are incredibly productive, but all the logistics, the 6 months of logistics to make sure everyone gets onto the cruise ship, to make sure that we all take off on time, to make sure the itinerary allows enough time, all of this stuff takes preparation. They are incredibly considered thinkers, but the activator on his jet ski is not carrying 3,000 guests. They don't need to worry about this type of logistics, so they can just go and jump over icebergs or whatever, whereas icebergs are potentially the worst thing ever for a cruise ship. And an iceberg, in this sense, is an emergency that gets dropped on you with no notice. When I don't have time to consider, because I need to get my serotonin, I can't get my serotonin because I'm not sure that this is going to be the right decision. Therefore, I am going to go into what we call analysis paralysis. Is anyone aware of this phenomenon? Okay, so if you go to the Pacific Islands, they call it island time. Things happen when they happen. Time isn't a thing. It's just going to happen as it plays out. Get off your Garmin and stop worrying about the 2:05 start for jet skiing. You just need to chill out because you're in Fiji, okay? There's a whole nation of guardians and diplomats that create this diplomat time, and so one of the ways to stress a diplomat is to put things out of their control and to compress their timeline. Now they don't have time to think about it. Now they've got to make lots of risky decisions, which stresses them significantly. And so this is exactly what we see. We see this, and essentially we get this stubbornness of, nope, I'm not shifting. I don't have enough time. And instead of discussing that and saying, I could do with a little bit more time, the diplomat will just say, nah, I'm not doing it. We're not changing it. And an environment that creates a lot of short-term change, this body needs to get a lot of tools to be able to deal with it in a healthy way, whereas the activator is going to throw themselves into new change because that's excitement for them, the adrenaline. Can everyone see how this works in a work dynamic? All right. So then we have the connector, which is all about oxytocin. Oxytocin is about trust and connection. And the types of bodies that we see are like Matt Damon, field hockey players with the slightly thicker thighs than the Simone Biles of the world. They've got moderate to thick joints. They've got good musculature as well. And essentially what oxytocin makes you crave is connection and trust. You can get that while you're out and about. You say g'day to a person that you've just kind of met. You go, woohoo, like good trust, handshake, feeling good about that, a little bit of oxytocin, and I'm off. Or there can be a loving relationship that provides oxytocin your whole life. So this body is craving oxytocin all of the time. And so what's safe for them is a connected team, fun and variety, because if you're boring, then you're going to break trust, because you don't want to hang out with someone who's boring. So you have to keep things fun and varied all of the time. And connecting with others is the thing that they do the most. This is the person who will hang out at that water cooler all day long, just doing shift work with every single person who wants to rehydrate. They are there for them, to chat with them, to have an awesome time, because they get oxytocin and they get their biological safety when they get that as well. So, and what comes along with this variety and the ability to change and to adapt is really quick problem solving. This is a brain that does really well in the moment. So then we have what stresses them: disconnection, or being shamed publicly. Because oxytocin, this state of needing oxytocin, means that you want to be connected to everyone, and to be shamed in front of people, to be put down in front of people, is the most violating thing that could possibly happen, because it disconnects you from people. Does that make sense to everyone? Whereas some people, like an activator, would maybe just use some expletives, and that's how they deal with it, and they just reject the shame or the guilt that's been placed on them, and they walk away feeling even more pumped up on testosterone, thinking, I am so much better than them, I win this competition of the argument. Whereas the connector is constantly seeking for that connection, and so to be shamed in front of people is a huge stress. And then the boredom side of things as well. So you can see now that there are very, very different people, and the final one that we have is the sensor, which is a very, very strong ectoderm. This is all about nervous system. And before we do that, I'm just going to get everyone to stand up, and we're just going to do 5 squats. Oh yes, bit of a stretch, reach up to the sky. Oh, tickle the person's ear next to you. A little bit of oxytocin, a little bit of connecting. All right, the person who didn't do that was the sensor. What is stress for this body is anything that is going to risk their physical health. They don't have much physical capacity to fight because they've got less muscle tissue and fat tissue than others, but they've got a very, very active brain. And so what stresses them is things that are unstable or overstimulating. They are at work all day in an open plan office with their nervous tissue just sending all of these messages from the outside. When you've got a slighter frame like a ballet dancer, everything is a threat to you. Cold is a threat. People are a threat. Cold salads are a threat. Because if this body gets cold and if the digestion gets upset, then it will give mental fog. Mental fog, this brain is designed to keep them out of trouble, not to navigate in trouble, but to keep them out of trouble at all times. They've got a body that relies on their nervous system, and therefore they will be very rule-oriented. Rules come with predictability. Predictability comes with safety. And so this is a brain that will be very logical, they'll gather lots of information. They'll be wearing 7 scarves during summer. They'll make sure that all of their food is well cooked. They'll love their yoga and their dark room meditation. Does anyone know someone like this? Yeah, we've got a few nods. Very good. And they will be very, very logical, because logic equals safety. If I gather enough data with this brain that I have, I will be safe. And so they will be right into making sure they have all the details on things. If you send an instructional email to this person, you'll get it back with notes saying, you said this, do you mean A, B, or C? And you said this, and in case of C, do you mean 1 or 2? And when it comes to these common statements here, there's 4 spelling errors, and also this wouldn't be the right timestamp to be sending this email, that kind of stuff. Very specific, very detail-oriented, and they have to be, because everything is a potential physical threat. You put this person into the savannah or the Serengeti with a loincloth, and all they've got to support themselves is their mind. And so they collect as much with their mind as possible, but as a result, they get overwhelmed with information. This is why we have a leaner body with gut issues that's slightly anxious as a common phenotype. Everyone following along so far? So we have these bodies. We have these 6 bodies. Now, I'm going to go through this. Essentially, there aren't just 6 bodies. There's 7.5 billion bodies. But the important thing is for right now, we're going to focus on these 6. But when we actually get into the full, when you get into the full description of what a body can be, and this is genetic science and phenotype science, there's actually infinite amount of possibilities that you might be. So that's very important. But there are definitely, and as you can know right now, there are trends of bodies. You can relate to these bodies already because you've seen them. But the crazy thing is that I've described psychological variables, physical activity variables, physical structure, digestive issues. All of these things are actually correlated together because we're coming from the same development, from the same hormones that are driving everything in our body. Is that following along? So this is where personalised health is going now, and it's very, very exciting. So once we understand these bodies, what we do now matters. So we're going to go through the what, the when, and the who. So as far as the CrossFitting world, where we've got competition, high fives, bum slapping, lifting weights, doing lots of excitement, having a leaderboard, eating high protein in the morning, getting up and being heroes before 7 a.m., all of that sort of stuff. This is very much an activator experience. Their body does better with high intensity exercise, and it does better with high protein. These things create biological safety for the activator or that mesomorph, okay? We then have the guardian. They are not designed to go and run around and do sprints. We think about a body now that's 120 kilos, even when they're fit, okay? 120 kilos, and you get them doing agility, and you get them doing high sprints and change of directions. This is not what this body's potential was for. This body's potential is for lifting heavy stuff and lifting it a few times and then having a chat with their mate who they get to connect with. And then all that, they've got this ultimate engine that they can just go for hours at a low intensity. But that high lactic acid, high intensity thing is not designed for this body. And you can see it just by looking at this body. They are not designed for nimbly-bimbly activities. They are designed for lifting heavy stuff and being there for the endurance, for the family. They also do better with lower protein. Lower protein, which is really interesting, which we can talk about at another time. And they do better with a lower carb intake as well. So whereas we have a body over here that's designed for endurance in the marathon running and love the carbs. They can eat carbs all day. This is the person living in the bakery who seems to be dropping weight because they're just eating carbs all day. This is a body that tolerates carbohydrates very well. And you can see if you go out and do most diets right now, they will cut, first thing always is carbohydrates. This person cuts carbohydrates, it completely smashes their brain because their brain is the thing that is working the most profoundly in their body. The ectoderm, the nervous tissue, they need to use their brain to think, and carbohydrate is that primary fuel source. So it's not just one size fits all for these solutions. Then we get to meditation. Meditation is fantastic. You go into a deep state of calm. You do deep breathing, 5 in, 5 out. You do a guided meditation. You sit there for anywhere between 60 to 120 minutes, and you'll find that your life comes back into alignment. Is excellent advice for this body that has a lot of stress around their nervous system because they need their brain to stop working, and meditation does that. However, if you try and get an activator to sit still for 60 to 120 minutes, focusing on nothing but their breath, they'll start flicking rubber bands across the room. They'll start competing with the person next to them to make sure that they are doing the poses better. They'll be doing extras so that they can get more movement. Their meditation is movement, because their musculoskeletal system is their dominant organ and they need movement to feel normal. So when they move, they go into a meditative state. I don't know if you've seen it, but mesomorphs on the dance floor, it's like the whole world disappears and they become one with the beat. And then when they're carving shapes, no one else exists except for these epic shapes that are happening on the dance floor. I don't know if you guys have an end of year Christmas party, but look out for those mesomorphs, okay? So this is meditation for them. No thinking, all movement. And so when you're thinking about a strategy for yourself, this is a strategy. If you feel like you're that person that can't sit still, sitting in still for 60 minutes may cause you more stress. Versus a body over here is designed, meditation is socializing. The connector, the oxytocin, and the prolactin of the guardian, being around people makes their body feel good, makes their body calm down. Being isolated and not being able to talk will create isolation anxiety for a connector. Whereas for a sensor, this is the perfect experience because no one's talking, there's no noise, it's a perfectly warm room, it's fantastic. Can everyone see the differences here? Does anyone have an understanding of where they might sit right now in between one or two of them? Cool. So as we're going forward, make sure you're taking some down these strategies. And then for the diplomat, getting into nature is how this body fully restores itself. There's a whole lot of interesting science around that. The ionization coming out of the trees, the oils that come out of the trees as well that support different systems in the body. But the diplomat is specifically sensitive to nature and it restores them, even gardening restores them more than a high intensity exercise session would. In fact, high intensity exercise could potentially stress them. So we have these different bodies, we have different strategies. We then have the when. I've been working in practice now for 15 years. 80% of my results over the last 5 years have come from when people do things, not what they do. So you can be eating great food, but not getting a result. And a typical example of that is someone who has always had trouble with their weight. They're getting up for this early morning boot camp at 5 in the morning every morning for 12 weeks. They're eating this high protein, regular intake diet, like 5 meals a day. And they're watching all these people transform around them. And then they get to the weigh-in at the end of the week or the end of the 12 weeks and they've put on half a kilo and they've got a bad knee. Has anyone experienced something like that or known someone like that before? A few nods, okay? This is so common and it's because we have an optimal time for doing things. What we know is that to the left, the early birds reside. This is a chronotype. This means that they're tolerant of stress in the morning, and the night owl is tolerant of stress in the afternoon. So for an early bird, this is when they should be going hardest, doing new tasks, doing lots of movement in general. And in the PM, they should be reducing their activity. This is where they should be doing their administration, where they should be doing less intense brain work as well. Versus the night owl, they are meant to increase their activity in the PM, increase their exercise, increase their brain work because they've had a steadier morning and a more calming, more administrative morning. This is a big deal when you're at work. You come in and you find someone who is just so hard to deal with in the morning, but then they are so good in the afternoon. It is not their fault. It is their parents' fault because they have night owl physiology. Night owls. And they're also diplomats and guardians who don't like sharp change anyway. And then an activator comes in, haven't done their CrossFit, haven't done their excitement, haven't had a coffee, haven't got through a bunch of their tasks, and they're ready to socialize now because they've got things on. They come in and say, right, we've got this job, this job, this job, and I changed that, and I got this, and we got that. And the diplomat is still waking up at 8 o'clock, and they're thinking, why are you? And then the answer comes back is like, I don't have time for that. Because their brain is thinking to change all of these things. I need my brain online, but then even still I need to consider all of these other things as well so I get my serotonin at the end of it. You can see how an office dynamic now just gets stressful just because you're talking to people at the wrong time. And so the really important thing in this is if you see someone who is not engaged in the morning with you, don't piss them off, Just don't engage with them in a way where you're going to trying to put pressure on them. Maybe even ask them, how you feeling? Even if you don't know what their early bird night owl status is, the fact that we've got a bunch of people in the room right now, you can say, how you feeling in the morning? I feel terrible. Come and get me at 9 o'clock. And he's like, no problem. We just avoided a whole lot of trouble. And this is where relationship dynamics can break down. Night owl partner, early bird partner, and they're wondering why they're not in sync and why one person wants to stay in bed and the activator is saying, I've got to get up and move. And the diplomat is saying, no, let's just lie and relax and be really nice. It's like, we never have any time together. This just understanding a little bit of biology makes such a profound impact on the people that you work with, but also the people that you socialize with too. So the tangible I want you to take away from this, not just this one slide, is be consistent with your timing of sleep. So if you want to get your rhythms better, you go to bed at the same time, you try and wake up at the same time, you do exercise at the same time. Even if you don't know what your rhythm is, late or night or in the middle, just do things consistently and it will give your body a rhythm. Now, obviously, if you're doing shift work, that's tougher. And so there's a whole nother conversation that we need to have about shift work. But this is for the majority of people in this room right now. That's what we've got to be thinking about. So know that time of day can make things 3 to 4 times easier or harder. I don't know if you've ever just battled through something. It's taken you 3 hours to get a job done. You wake up in the morning, you just go, oh, bang, 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 20 minutes, it's done, all of that hard thinking. This is because there are physiological times that our brain is better at doing things. And when you do things at the right time, it creates biological safety for you as well. It actually improves your health. if you do things at the right time. So this night owl situation of that boot camper, this is exactly what's going on. We've got a night owl that needs 2 to 3 meals per day, not 5. They need strong, heavy, nature, steady exercise, and they're being told to get up first thing in the morning, run around madly, do burpees and jumping, and then eat this high-protein diet that is not going to suit them at all. Well, and we wonder why there's no result, because I'm doing everything I possibly can. Wrong time and the wrong thing being done. So then we have the who. So we're going to have different people speak in different ways. And the reason why I'm just doing this right now is so that you can be aware. Some people are direct and blunt, and they don't realize that they are. The perfect example of this is like, oh, it's come out in your profile that you're going to be quite direct. And they say, I'm not direct, but my wife always says I'm angry. This is because when you come across direct, it can come across angry to some people because they're not used to that directness. And so if you find that someone's being direct, they could well be an activator and they are living their biology. Or they've just not had good sleep, in which case they are living their biology. They're living on adrenaline if they've had poor sleep. So let's be tolerant of those people who are sometimes a little bit too direct. At the same time, some people like to just hang out by themselves. They are very literal with their words. Things must mean what you say. And if they don't mean what you say, then why would you say it? Because that makes no sense. This is the more ectomorphic body. And they like hanging out by themselves because there's less noise. There's less nervous system input. There's less stress. There's just less overwhelming them. And so they'll want time by themselves. They'll want to be more like Batman and just hang out in a cave, in a nice, warm, dark cave that allows them to get all their work done. And they're incredible at getting that work done too. We then have a body that is calm, relaxed, family-like. The purpose isn't important so much. It's just more about that we're together. And the conversation will be general. And there will be lots of it. And it's okay to cut them off because they're just here to talk and spend time. The talking isn't that important, but the talking's a nice little side effect because we get to spend time together and we're connecting, and that's the most important thing. And so I've been at a water cooler now for 20 minutes because I haven't been direct enough saying I've got to go. But this is a body that just wants to do that and is just really happy just spending time with people. And so then we have the thoughtful, considered, we have the social, the chatty, and we have the purposeful, the need to produce an efficiency. And the reason why I tell you about this is because when people have a natural predisposition that is built into their biology, it's built into the way their organs develop, it's built into the way their hormones process the world, when they act the way their body tells them to, they are actually doing good things for their health, which can be a little bit hard to sort of get your head around. But you have those same behaviors that are going to annoy that same person because you're different. And so if we can go forward and just understand that these differences are biologically driven, and the points that I would like to really get across is that what we do is very, very important. How we go about that, when we go about it is very, very important as well. And just being conscious of what time of day you're actually engaging with people. And then if you can understand as well that people are talking, people are speaking, people are communicating to you in a way that matches their biology and then matches the biological health as well. If someone is tired and essentially stressed, they will be often, they'll play out this communication pathway even more. They'll be even more direct, or they'll be even more recluse, or they'll be even more analysing before they'll say anything, and they'll be even more stubborn as a result of that as well. And if you can understand that it may well be their biology at play and their body doing their best thing they can to reduce that stress, that's going to help significantly. Alrighty, so what I would like to do is the last thing I'm going to finish here, I'm just going to cut through and I'm just going to finish here because I'm conscious of time, is to how you have an impact on the people around you. So essentially, why it matters if you're stressed and unaware of it. If you're walking through your world and you don't realize the things that stress you, you don't realize the things that stress other people, and you're a walking cyclone. Because you are going to do something without awareness that is going to trigger someone else, because that's the way humans are built, okay? We don't often mean it, but it's just because of where we're at right now. So what's really interesting is that if you've got people who are calm, people who are living their biology, so the activators got up, they've done their early morning exercise, they've had their meals so they're not hangry, which is a real thing for activators, they get very hangry. The diplomat has had a nice steady start to the morning and they're really chilled and they're really starting to wind into their work now. These people are going to be calm, and they're going to be emitting calm. You know when you're like doing some work and you can feel someone looking at you from behind with anger, and you can feel them on your shoulders. Anyone experienced something like that before? Or when you hang out with legends and you feel legendary afterwards. This is because we have a very measurable electromagnetic radiation that comes out of us. And if we are happy, it's a different frequency than when we're sad. And if you are walking around stressed, you emit a stressed frequency. And what's interesting is that will influence the person next to you. And what they've done in labs is if they've taken people who are very calm and living in their biological safe zone, and they've put someone who is neutral, not feeling good or bad. And what happened, just sitting in the same room, this fourth person went into a calm state with their heart rhythm. The impact that you have on people around you is real. You'll know it when you're dealing with kids. You'll know it when you're dealing with your partner. You'll know it when you've got a heap of stress in the office. It is hard to not be stressed. This is the challenge that I put to you as well, is to understand more about yourself so that you can get yourself to a calm space. Understand yourself more so that you can take the measures to get into that meditative state or a calm, relaxed state, because it will have a profound impact on the person next to you. Because what happens when it goes bad, let's say two people are having a fight, one person says something bad, the second person doesn't react, but just gets angry, but doesn't say anything, but you can see by the redness in their face that they are seething. The third person, who is not involved in this situation at all, but sitting next to them, their blood pressure goes up. They go into resistance phase because they are next to people who are stressed. They are next to people who are suppressed. And everything that we've been talking about today is if you can align what you do with your body, you will come out of this suppressed state and you will go into a flow state. This flow state will have a positive influence on those people around you as well. So the way that you can do this is, firstly, always know that every time that you do something for your stress, every time that you take something out of your bucket, it is going to also take something out of the collective bucket as well. And you are all on the same team, whether you like it or not. When you are working through crises, when you're working through emergencies, if each of you take individual responsibility for taking things out of your bucket in the ways that we've been speaking about today, or just in the way that you know stress works, it's going to have a profound effect on the people around you. And we as humans are here to connect. Some people don't like connecting as much, but everyone will want some connection of some description. And so some people just need to vent, and being a person's vent buddy can be one of the best things that you can do for activators and connectors. Being a person's intellectual stimulus might be the best thing that you can do for a sensor, or leaving a sensor alone might be the best thing. But either way, allow people to communicate to you what they need from you, because there's a good chance they'll already understand a fair bit to do with their biology already. And with that, you have the absolute capacity to turn up. If you are unstressing your bucket, you've got people next to you unstressing their bucket as well, you have this opportunity of going into flow and experiencing a health increase by the time you leave home, so that you can really give back to the families, which is what we're here for at the start. Thank you very much.